Denis Villeneuve, welcome back to the show. Nice to see you.
Nice seeing you.
So, congratulations on the film. You must be delighted.
It's a relief to finally to be able to share it with the world. Yes.
So you were 13 or 14 years old or something like that, from what I read, when you first came across the book.
Yeah, it's a. At the time, I was like a teenager that I was kind of into sci-fi. I was reading everything that I could found at the time, and I by total coincidence, I found this in a bookstore. The Dune had a striking cover and the title, and there's something about it. Anyway, short story is that I found it by coincidence, and I felt in love and spontaneously with it. I mean, there's something about the journey of the main character, Paul Atreides, his feeling of isolation, the way he was struggling with the burden of his heritage, family heritage, genetic heritage, political heritage, climatic heritage, all this weight on his shoulder, and then finally being able to find freedom through the contact with another culture. That at the time, this idea that the way he was curious and excited about meeting people from another planet, and then this intuition that he could eventually fulfill a part of his identity. I don't know how to say that in English, but finally gets closer to the true self through this other culture. I thought was a beautiful idea, but it's a novel that has a lot of layers, and it's a kind of novel that, as the more you read it at different ages, you always find something new. It's a really a rich and dense book.
What do you think it was about you back then that it appealed to you?
That feeling of that deep melancholia, that feeling of isolation, and that attraction to massive white spaces and foreign cultures. There was something about that struck me at the time. Later on, I will say that it's the idea that in order to get free, you have to deal with the inner voices that are the ghosts coming from the past. I'm talking about the genetic heritage or the education that you received, and the way that this trap your subconscious and put limits in your freedom in everyday life. The way you make decisions or are affected by those inner voices. I'm not talking about schizophrenia; it's an image, but the inner forces that how can you get rid of those forces and become free? And that's something that really impressed me at the time.
Did you have any aspirations to adapt it?
We'll say that at the time when I discovered the book, it was in the same time that I was like discovering what's the work of a filmmaker. I was getting more and more interested about what happened behind the camera. So there's a kind of coincidence between discovering Dune and starting to dream of making films. And I remember with a very good friend of mine, my best friend, in fact, that still he lives in Toronto today, Nicolas Kadima. We were drawing storyboards or images of what could be a Dune movie at the time, but that was like it was just like we were big dreamers, and it was like just like a fantasy. But it took me a while before I thought that I could one day bring this movie to the screen.
I wouldn't normally talk about it. And I know that fortune, we say back home, I don't know if you say it, but fortune favors the bold. Like we are nothing without taking risks, right? Especially in art. Art is nothing if not taking risks. But this, I mean, I had never seen the earlier Dune films. I hadn't read the books. I had no knowledge of, except, the fear is the mind killer line. And even I knew that people saw this as a challenge to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Were you apprehensive at all when it finally came your way?
I was apprehensive to that. My fear was to not be able to please that teenager that dreamed so big at the time. Because the idea that when I decided to make this movie, I said to myself that I wanted. In the past, I did adult movies, meaning that movies for because the movie were too dark or too violent, my movies were all rated R. But this was the first time that I decided to make it for a PG-13, meaning that it will be a movie that will be the younger audience will be. It will be how can I say acceptable for and suitable for a younger audience.
Is that a challenge? That's
no? But I will explain it. The thing is that I did that because I wanted young people to experience what I had, the experience I had when I discovered the book at 13 or 14 years old. The idea was then to try to get back in contact with this part of me that read the book, that part of me that was so arrogant and pretentious and totalitarian and such a big dreamer when I was a teenager. And in order to respect the images that came to my mind at that time, and that to try, like an archaeologist, to dig and bring those images back to the surface, that was a big challenge because it's like... as the composer of the movie, Hans Zimmer, told me once when at the beginning he asked me a question. He said, "Is it really a good idea to tackle to try to bring to the screen one of your oldest dream, one of the ultimate fantasy? You know, is it a good idea?"
Why wouldn't it be a good idea?
Because you can just be it can just be disappointing. I mean, it's like a impossible task to bring to life something that has been so close to your art and soul, and that you dream for 40 years. Are you bound to fail? You know, it's like so. I will say that I thought a lot about it, but that was the big challenge, to try to please the hardcore Dune fan I was. Yeah.
What made it worth it?
Listen, every time someone asks me what was my one of my biggest dreams in cinema, I always answer to adapt Dune. And every time I open the book, it every time brings that deep, pure joy, that deep inspiration, we have one life and to live, and I felt that I couldn't say no to such a challenge. When I do movies, I try to put all my chips on the table. I love to take risk. I love to push myself as much as possible. I love to jump and without having any net to say no. But seriously, it's like art. You have to take risk in order to create, and this for me was like kind of challenge as I was ready to take. And I have too much love for the book. It's like I would have ate myself all my life if I had not tried it.
Where do you think that comes from in wanting to jump without the net?
Artistically, I must say.
No, yeah, right, of course. No, yeah, we don't have anything set up outside the door or anything like that, you know?
No, it's linked with the way creativity works for everybody, by the way. It's like, I'm, frankly, I don't want to talk about myself, but I will say that I'm an anxious human being.
Yeah.
Say I'm not like any. But when it comes to cinema, there's something about a certainty. I just see what I need to do, and it's clear. The path is clear for me. So when I decided to do Dune, I said I didn't thought about a second about what has been made before. I just focused on the book, kept the words of Frank Herbert very close to me. The book was my Bible. I refer to it constantly as I was shooting. All the answers were in the book.
Was it the same copy you had when you were a kid, or was it?
Okay. I'll say there's like the book is in 2 parts.
Yeah.
So the second part is the original. The first part, I had to find it back again because the original one, I gave it to a girl I was in love with at high school, and I never found it back. I should not say that. It's not interesting, but it's somewhere. But I have the original edition, yeah.
That's going to be on eBay now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Saying, you focused on the book, you focused on Frank Herbert's words and to adapt that. I thought a little bit about this because last time you and I spoke was for Blade Runner 2049, and I asked you, were you talking to Ridley Scott? And you said yes. You said it was important that I reached out to him and I talked to him a little bit about the film. And all I could think was you didn't have that. Frank Herbert's not with us. You didn't have that in this case. Did you miss having that sort of advice, that permission?
The thing is that I have I think a very good relationship with his son Brian, that take care of the estate. But of course, I would have loved to have an input and a direct contact with Frank Herbert. For me, he's a god. Now, saying this in the same time, maybe it gave me a freedom that maybe I made decisions that I would not have dared to do if he had been with us. I don't know. It's like I think that when you adapt, you need total freedom, and to adapt is to destroy a little bit. It's a process that is quite violent to go from the book to the screen. You have to change. You have to. It's like definitely the movie is my take on the book, and I try to respect and to be as close as possible to the poetry and the ideas and the atmosphere in the book. My dream, and that's what I said to my team, I would love that our adaptation being an act of humility, meaning that I want the audience that know the book to feel that we put a camera in their mind, as they were reading the book. It's like, it's very pretentious, but that's the goal. It's to really be as close to the book as possible, but still, I had to change things in order to make it cinematic.
And you made other changes as well. One of the big changes that I saw being remarked upon was perhaps a greater depth of the female characters in this adaptation. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
But the thing is that the depth and the beauty of the characters are in the novel. It's just that I focus on these characters, and in order to be able to bring this adaptation to the screen, I had to make choices. The book is so rich that it's like a incredible landscape, and I had to make precise choices in order to bring the story to the screen. And one of them was to focus on the female characters, and the femininity aspect of the novel, which I thought were one of the beautiful quality of it, and elements that and character that I really loved, who are my favorite characters in the novel. So that's why me and the screenwriters, we right from the start, it was the first thing I said to Eric Roth, who was the first one who put his hands on the keyboard. I said, you have to focus on the women, and so it means that for the people who don't know the story, there's like in Dune a female congregation of sisterhood, the sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit, who are controlling all the politics from the shadows, and they are like masters that have full control over their bodies, and that can control the minds of other people with their voice, and they are like strong, kind of what we could say a bit witches, but very strong characters that really control the destiny of humanity in order to move humanity toward enlightenment. And there's something, the way they use time as a weapon, the way they control other people, it's really amazing, and a take on feminism in a way that I thought was quite brilliant at the time, and I tried to put that up front in this adaptation.
That's so interesting. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, that was such an alluring part of the film. Those characters are so rich in this film. I can't imagine them not being front and center.
Lady Jessica, Paul Atreides' mother, is very central to the story, But I think that the movie really focused on their relationship. It's something that could have been put aside a little bit, but for me it was very, very central in the novel. You follow different characters, and in this one, I really focus on the main character, which is Paul Atreides, of course, but more importantly with his relationship with his parents, and more precisely with his mother, that goes through with him through the journey.
Could you have made this film without making Arrival or Blade Runner?
No, I'm the product of my experiences, and I knew that I would be able to tackle this challenge because of Arrival, Sicario. All my past brought me to do this project. It's like the accumulation of experience. I did Dune when I knew I had enough control over the tools.
Help me understand that a little bit better. I don't make films, right? So like, what would you have taken from each of those experiences that lead you here?
But for example, Arrival, it was the first time that I was dealing with a certain amount of visual effects, and that I had to experiment how to blend visual effects into reality. It was my first time that I was really I had to do a little bit of design to create elements of a new world. Then when I went to do Blade Runner, then it was like not just like some elements. I had to create a full world, and that was, of course, deeply inspired by Ridley Scott. So it was like taking but still I had to design a city, buildings, architecture, tons of detail, the technology, the clothes. You have to, when you do sci-fi, it's you become the master of a whole universe, and again, going through the process of creating visual effects that will be as real as possible. And doing Blade Runner, I had the massive privilege to work with Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, for a year, doing all the visual shots with Roger, sitting beside him and working together to bring the visual effects to life. And Roger being a master of light and naturalism, I learned so much on each shot. It was like a master class into lighting, and that helped me tremendously to be able to bring Dune to reality. I mean, it's like all those elements. There's also the technical aspect of it. I mean, like how to work with more complex stunt work, how to work with much more. Each movie has its own challenges, but like as an example, when I did Polytechnique, it was the first time that I was working with crowds, and how to direct crowds, and how to direct elements in the depth of field that as several events happen simultaneously, and to deal with each movie has its own challenge and technical challenge, and that's yeah.
I mean, what's consistent to me in all these things is, and I said this to you before we started rolling, and I'll say it to you again, is that I've watched, I'm not going to say any names of these films, but I've watched films where I feel like the grandness of I have a friend of mine who said to me one time, he said, I just don't want to read any book that has a map, man. Like I don't want to read any book that has a map at the beginning of it. I don't know if I agree with that, but sometimes I watch films and I feel like I can get so lost in just the scale, and there's all these different villages and there's all these different paths, and the world is so big. It feels like the world itself is the story as opposed to the story. Mm-hmm. But what you managed to do in Arrival and Blade Runner and definitely in Dune was you were really able to tell what is truly just a story between a couple of people on a massive scale. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. Yes. But that for me, that's the book. It's like Dune is a very, very intimate journey of a character, Paul Atreides, and it's like we are following him very closely. We have in the book directly access to his thought, and the way he perceive things and his strategies to survive, and I tried to keep that quality. That for me, that was my focus, to protect the intimacy of the story. The rest, the scope, and it's something that's easier to do technically. It's like the challenge for me was to make sure that the story from a dramatic and a human point of view was accurate and meaningful. Yeah.
I know it's meaningful also that this people see this in theaters? I think the answer to why is obvious, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about it.
But when we, the cinematographer of Dune, cinematographer Greg Fraser and I started to brainstorm about the movie, we knew that we will have to. At the end of the day, it's a character that will be in contact with a new planet, a new landscape, and the more he will travel into this landscape, the more the journey will become introspective, and the more he will learn about himself, and it will be about the impact of this landscape on his psyche. And it's so to bring this idea to the world. We said there's nothing like IMAX, because the desert landscape have been several times embraced with a scope, but with IMAX we felt that there was something. IMAX is very strange. It's like the biggest format possible, and in the same time, it has the square quality of home movies. And when you deal with IMAX, the thing that I learned through my experience is it's that it creates a strong feeling of vertigo with landscapes, but then an insane intimacy with character. I mean, there's something about you feel that you're closer than ever to them in IMAX, not because of the size, but there's something about the proximity that I always. So it's a very intimate medium, and that balance between intimacy and scope, Greg and I felt that IMAX will be perfect, and so all the movie was designed for this massive screen experience. The way we shot the movie, the way I approached depth of field, the way I approached rhythm in the editing, the way we designed the sound and the music was like just all for being a big screen event. So so I feel that if ever you watch Dune at home on your computer, you will just have like a glimpse of what the full experience is. It's really. In order to have the full impact of Dune, you need to have this immersive quality and commitment that you have when you engage with an image, when you are in a movie theater.
Are you nervous at all? I mean, through the pandemic, we saw so much movie watching, which had already been declining in people going to theaters. More people were watching at home. People started watching first-run movies at their homes. I had directors coming in and telling me they're not sure if the kind of films they make, which admittedly are smaller, more smaller budget films, if they would ever be back in theaters ever again. As someone who fell in love with films, as you were telling me at the very beginning, so young, are you ever worried about it?
I'm worried. I mean, and the fact that the pandemic happened and a very bad timing for cinema where we were like, but. I'm worried. I'm optimistic too. I think that as human beings, we need communal experiences. We need to share experience with others. I mean, when we go to a rock concert, we don't want to be alone in the room. I mean, it's the same with cinema. There's something about. I was like doing the tech check at IMAX. It's like you cannot go through this experience at home. It's something that. Can be only reproduced in theaters, and I think that the theatrical experience will survive. I think that maybe the theaters that will present movies will be more sophisticated in the future with bigger screens. I think that maybe we'll see the end of smaller theaters that don't bring enough firepower in the experience. But definitely, I think that the big screen will prevail and will be with us. It's part of the language of cinema. So now the big question is, I'm saying this from the Hollywood perspective. What worries me is not about Hollywood. What worries me is about cinéma d'auteur, like author film documentaries that have the right to be, should be seen on big screen too. And that I'm worried that it's true that maybe smaller movies will have more and more difficulty to find their place on big screens, and that I'm sad about that, and I'm trying to find a way to how can we preserve a window for those movies as well. I don't have the answer yet, but I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
It was interesting to kind of go back throughout your career and get ready for this interview again. I wanted to congratulate you on winning the TIFF Ebert Director Award at this year's TIFF Tribute Awards, which recognizes filmmakers who have exemplified greatness in their career. And I have no doubt that when you started as a filmmaker, your goal was to win as many awards as possible.
When I started,
yeah, I'm right. I'm joking. No, it was not. It could not have possibly been.
I will be honest with you. When you're a young filmmaker and you want, that's the thing. You want to exist, and you want to define your identity, and you want to win awards. That's the truth. When you start,
no,
you
really?
want. No, but the thing is that it's like you want to put your flag into the landscape of cinema. You want to exist. And a way to exist is to go to film festival or win awards, or you want to, and which is the wrong way to do things.
And were you like that too? That was you too.
But when I was like a young, I was very arrogant and pretentious, and I stopped making movies because I realized that I was heading in the wrong way, and that was if I had stayed with that in mind, I would have died as a director several years ago. I'm not making movies to win awards anymore since a long time. But it's like at the time when I was young, you were dreaming about Academy Awards or Palme d'Or. It's what that was the way to exist. Now today I make movies for total different reasons. Yeah.
But I love that. I love that. Like the closer you actually get to it, and the closer you get to the possibility of these things, the less you care about it. That's interesting to me.
But the thing is that you have no control over that. I mean, it's like it's not, and that it's not to make movies in order to try to get awards is very sterile. Is it the way?
Yeah.
It will be the ridiculous way to. For me, it's the act of cinema right now. For me, is what happens with the camera and the actors and actresses, but the result. I made peace with the fact that I have no control about how people will perceive my work. It's like the only thing I can control is how I evolve as a filmmaker through each movie. Yeah.
Do you still feel like a Quebec filmmaker? Is that still in these films you're making now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Frankly, my influence are still very French Canadian, very from Quebec. I'm still every time I take a camera, I know that my thoughts are going back to some to Pierre Perrault or Michel Brault or people that have nothing to do with people that have nothing. My movies have nothing to do with their work. But still, I'm deeply inspired by them, by their relationship with nature, by their relationship with reality, the way they embrace they use cameras. There's something about that I still feel it's in my DNA. And there's a way that I was taught to do movies at home, that flexibility. The way to adjust yourself with reality, because when you make a movie in Canada, I mean, if you wrote a scene 4 years ago that involves bright sunlight, and on the morning you arrive and it's pouring rain,
yeah, right.
You don't have the choice to adjust yourself.
You have $45 to do this.
Yeah,
scene
yeah,
too,
exactly. So you don't you adjust, and that capacity of adaptation, which I found with my production designer, Patrice Vermette, or this kind of flexibility, this kind of way of dealing with it's to adjust. It's something that I will say this. I was able to make Dune because Patrice and I were raised in this way, meaning that we had to. The movie was very, very, very ambitious for the budget we had, and we had to find clever ways to make it happen, to keep the scope alive, to bring and Patrice was a pure genius of the way he designed the sets, and he resets and recycled things in order to create new things. It's like everybody were super impressed by Patrice's work, but that kind of way of doing things is definitely from Montreal. Yeah,
I love that, man. Like I think I thought when I was talking to you when you came in, we didn't really. Last time I talked to you was in Montreal, but I guess I sort of imagined on the way in that you were living in some sort of like Citizen Kane style mansion in the Hollywood Hills or something like that. I love that you're still in Montreal, or like that's still so important to you.
But,
you know?
but Montreal is like it's home, and it has there's a beautiful creativity there that you can find in theater, in the dance community, and even in restaurants. There's something about hunger for creativity, and there's like a freedom there that I found nowhere else. Creative freedom, that is insane. And that, for me, as a filmmaker, it's very important to stay in contact with that vibration. You know, it's like, and every time I go back to Montreal, it's like, I know that's I put a lot of, it's like creative fuel for me to go there.
Yeah, that's what, Sean Levy, the director Sean Levy.
Of course, he's a friend of mine.
We had him on for Free Guy a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
And I asked him a similar question, like, do you still feel like a, and he was like, yeah, he said, like, there's such a richness of things to see in Montreal. Like, you couldn't just be into film, you also had to be into art, you also had to be into photography, you also had to be into music if you were just wanted to be a well-rounded person in Montreal. There's
something, again, that Montreal is on the edge, and there's something that it's as an artist, it pushes you forward to try to. It's so beautiful to see everybody, the creativity there. That I love Los Angeles. We spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, but I need to come back from time to time, definitely.
Well, maybe this is the way I'll close things off. I'm just going back to the very beginning when you were talking to me about, who you were. I love that you said it was this pretentious kid, this pretentious totalitarian kid is what you told me. And then I said, were you apprehensive about, because there was all these, these other versions of Dune made, which we don't have to get into. And you were like, I didn't really care about that. I just cared about my young self, making this film for my young self. So what do you think young Denis Villeneuve in the video store would think of this film?
Honestly, I will say, he will say not bad, because there's moments in the movie that are very close to that spirit. And every time, frankly, it brings tears in my eyes, because it's the first time that this part of myself was able to express itself. And it's like a freedom to finally be honest that I deeply loved. I was born watching those movies when I was young, that kind of movies, and it just brought a deep joy into me to be able to do that once in my life. If you were saying me, someone was coming inside the studio saying, okay, that's enough, no more movies for you, you did it, and cinema is over, my first feeling would be gratitude, because I will say that was a ride. I feel so blessed that I had the chance to, at least one time in my life, went into that zone
I love that. The entire time we've been talking, I've been thinking, how the hell is he going to make another movie after this? You know what I mean? Like
and technically, the problem is that I painted myself in a corner. I did half of it. I did half of a big movie. I did Dune Part 1, and I need to do the second part now. Hopefully, we'll do it. I
can't wait to see it. I'm looking forward to having you back when it happens, and always nice to talk to you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Denis Villeneuve is an Oscar award-nominated director. His new film adaptation of the 1965 novel Dune just premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, and you can watch it in theaters in Canada starting October 22nd.